call the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you sit, I'd like to have a moment of silence for the tragedy that took place last week in Parkland, Florida. Just a moment for the families of the victims and those that are injured, and the well-being of that school district and the entire country. Thank you. Before I go into public comment, in regards to what happened last week in Parkland, Florida, I just want to let everyone know that this district will do whatever it takes to make sure our buildings are secure for our students and staff. If you listen to some of those reports and you heard the sheriff speak, I want to go out there and spread the word. If someone hears something, say something. If you see something, say something. It's very important. A little while ago I heard that there's some issues going around on social media about how some of our buildings might not be secure. That's not the way to approach it. If an individual is looking to do some harm to our student body and our staff, why put it out there? Come to one of us, come to the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, or any one of the building principals, and we'll address it. So I want to make sure that everyone understands that we're not going to sit back and let things happen. We're going to take a positive approach, proactive approach to solve any issues that we might have and to try to prevent something like that occurring again. Every little bit will help. I'm not going to say we're going to stop the tragedy, but we're going to try to minimize it. I just wanted to make sure that everyone understands that.
Thank you, Mr. President.
With that, we'll open the meeting up to public comment. Yes.
Alan, I wanted to ask you about number 10, letter C, on the unpaid taxes. Is the 1.7 million?
Question?
The question I had was, can you elaborate on this? Is this money that will soon be coming, or is it are there foreclosures, or?
So that was just a correction in the, there was just some checks that, didn't come through, and we just cleared up with the bank, so, I mean, it's very close to the past numbers.
School taxes, correct?
School taxes.
School tax.
Yes,
So they're just rewriting some checks or something, or recalculating?
right, they had to
Correcting the numbers.
They had to correct the number because there was a check that kind of went through.
So this is an unpaid school tax.
Right.
That needs to be-
But to be paid?
We have not received, residents have not paid.
Right.
So what happens down the road, a month, 2 months from now, if that's still unpaid?
County
Well,
makes
the
you
county
whole.
goes to the county.
Okay.
The county reassesses it on the land tax
Okay.
come January, which they already did, but now we're doing a correction of it.
But to be sure
We
that.
have to sign off certificate from all the trustees
Okay,
verifying that amount being accurate.
I got you, okay, thanks. And they make you whole about when?
The county,
Yeah,
I think, I can't speak for Louise, but I think in the past, it's not early on, it's later on in the cycle. We're not made whole right after January 1.
so it might be closer to June or so.
I can't speak for that. Louise would be able to speak for that.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Anyone else for public comment?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for the board for letting me come and speak today.
Your name, please?
Demetrius Katsidis. I live in 208 South Riverside Road, Allen, New York. As to what you and Mr. Miller said before about the safety of us and our community and our buildings and such, I come here to speak on behalf of all the victims that had suffered obviously of late. And I'm not going to say that our buildings or what you guys are doing isn't right, because we are in the right direction into doing anything and everything that we possibly can to make all of ourselves, especially our students, our future, safe. But, like you said, you're always open to public comment, any suggestions, stuff like that. You know, pretty much me, with the training of the military that I had, you know, I've seen what these firearms are capable of and what they can do. There are certain things that I'm saying and suggesting that we could do to better our security staff that we have here, like letting them be open-minded, or training to how to disarm, you know, an active shooter and stuff, because there are ways and methods and techniques that can be used to disarm such a person, you know, to prevent such tragedy, you know, from even it getting worse and stuff like that. We have to look at reality. We live in a terrifying world, you know, and that reality is whether it's terrorists, whether it's somebody mentally ill, which I personally believe there's a deeper, darker evilness to that, you know, we just have to, you know, do anything and everything that we can possibly, you know, versus having just one security guard in the building. Maybe we should be open to suggestion of having 2 or 3. Military, law enforcement trained. Those who are willing to, you know, take the risk and willing to, you know, step in and, you know, have that sacrifice, you know. All this stuff, you know, we could say could have been prevented, or, you know, could have been avoided if we ban a weapon, or, you know, we're always looking and talking about things that, you know, could possibly be done but never could be done. We can look at what we can do and what we are able to do and have the ability to do. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, I remember back in the day when I would go to school and there was a school resource officer. You know what I'm saying? Having a school resource officer or 2 of them already here versus the 5-minute, 10-minute time span that it takes for them to get from their department headquarters to here when a situation is happening is sometimes not enough. You know, the best course of action is the preventative, active, proactive action, like you said. You know, of course, some of us might say we don't want no one to have a gun or a firearm in school. I don't think anybody in this room wants to have a gun or a firearm in school. I get scared just talking about it, you know what I'm saying? But in reality, because of my military training, I see that sometimes the best course of action is fire against fire. And for somebody who is properly and morally trained to handle that scenario and situation, we have to be kind of open-minded into looking into it, and researching it more. I'm not saying something's gonna happen or change tomorrow, but we have to see the reality for what it is, based off of what happened last week. You know, and I would not be a human being, an American, a veteran, if I didn't come here tonight to sacrifice, you know, my night with my little 2-year-old, and you know, at 8:30 I go to karate and stuff like that. I come here to you to speak about this passionately because I am seeing a consistent routine in these things. Usually people, bad people, think of the weaknesses, you know, of a building or a place or a situation or a person. We have to kind of sometimes be able to think open-mindedly, and what would a bad person do? How would they go about it?
Timmy, I do appreciate you having the courage to speak up on such a sensitive topic and a timely one. And it is some conversations really that we've been having, both at the board level and then throughout the district. It appears that you have some suggestions or recommendations. I would love for you to write them down and get them.
Yes, I would be.
Whether you drop them off on a paper,
Absolutely.
email it to the superintendent so we could talk about that.
And I appreciate that. And the thing is, like I said, I'm just, any advice that I could give that would help and prevent a scenario from happening here. Because the thing is, I do feel our school district is a safe school district. I don't want it to become an unsafe school district. You know, because parents are talking about, in reality, you know, what if somebody shoots out the window?
I'm sure all the parents across the
Yeah.
nation are asking that same thing, and I do appreciate that concern, because my kids are in these schools as well. The idea is, even at that Florida school, we know that there were 2 officers on site. It was a pretty large school district.
It was,
It
yeah.
was a large school building, but they were on site, and still you're gonna have,
You're gonna always
unfortunately,
find-
loss of life, even with those scenarios. So,
Yes.
you know, the board could say the sky's the limit, but it really is up to what we want our schools to look like and what kind of protections we're willing to provide and pay for in the end. We know we've had armed SROs, and recently I kind of brought up the discussion to the board. We had an episode that led to discontinuing that program. We don't have to get into specifics, but discontinuing that program. But at what point do you bring it back for discussion alongside the realities of everyday life?
Of course.
And
And like I
I
said,
thank you,
no, definitely, I appreciate it. I'll get suggestions back.
because I like where you were headed with that list, and I'd love to see the
Great.
superintendent get it.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment? Okay, we'll move the meeting forward. Tonight we have an academic presentation. And Dan, would you like to make the introduction?
I don't know if there's a mic in the podium, but last year, when we put our local assistance plan together, we brainstormed some ideas, and we wanted to do something, we wanted to try something really different. All right, so we actually came up with what we wanted to call the After School Academy through the local assistance plan. And we started talking about it, and we were like, well, we can run this for 2 hours after school. And my first question was, how are we going to get kids to buy in, right? Come to school at 7:30, stay all day long, and then buy in for 2. Everybody would go home at 2:30, and they buy in for 2 more hours of instruction. Well, the way we got them to buy in was get a couple really fabulous teachers. And if you walk in and you see these kids engaged for 2 hours after school with a couple of teachers, that it's pretty fabulous to watch. And so Tom Trussell is one of those teachers. He came to talk about what they're doing in the After School Academy. So I'm really looking forward to it. Tom.
I'm not a big fan of podiums. I like to move around. And for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Tom Trussell. I teach math at the middle school. I just want to actually send a thank you to Superintendent Bon Jovi. He came down to the middle school today, and he actually gave a certificate of recognition to our security guard, Willard Sutton. He's a really great guy, and it goes a long way for staff in general to have just that little bit of recognition every now and again, especially with everything that went on last week. And we do a nice job of making sure everyone's safe and secure. So I just wanted to say thank you to you,
Thanks.
Superintendent Bon Jovi. So the After School Academy. When it first came up, I remember thinking, like, I wonder who's going to do that. And then I ended up thinking about it. And I was like, you know what, I want to do it, actually. Myself and Mr. Rinaldi, social studies teacher, with 2 TAs, Mrs. DeShulo and Mrs. Chalaise. We've built a really tight relationship with our kids that come. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays for 2 hours, 2:45 to 4:45. If anyone ever wants, you're more than welcome to come by. Our kids would be more than happy to show you what they're doing. They love showing that off. And basically, what we do is we always start with some physical activity. Our kids sometimes sit for so long and they get so mentally drained that we always start by getting them moving. And a lot of time it does involve them doing some problem solving in the process as well. I think I was at a PD last week and someone said someone doing research followed a high school student around, and they were a teacher for 25 years before they started doing this research, and by the end of the day they said they were so tired because of all the focus they needed in sitting and moving, and 40 minutes and the bell rings and you get up. So having some time to just let the energy out goes a long way. Okay, then we feed them, okay, because middle schoolers are hungry people. All right, so we go physical activity, we feed them, give them some water, give them a drink, And then we always go into inquiry-based learning. Now, a lot of times, this relates back to what we're doing here. We even did one day where we took our snack and we did some inquiry based on that, looking into the nutrition of it. So they're all kind of connected too. But the fact that you're able to get them moving around and then feed them a little bit, and then they're ready to jump right into taking that deep dive into subjects that they might not always get to in their regular 7:30 to 2:25 school day. So having all those together goes a long way, and with 2 hours, that gives us plenty of time to dig in too. How this has been helpful, we are re-engaging students. I guarantee that all these kids have the ability to do well and to think and to learn, but somewhere along the line, who knows, there's a million different factors that there could be. They kind of lost their way a little bit. It might have been at the very beginning of schooling, maybe it was just recently, but I really believe that we're getting kids energized and back into it and getting used to using what they know already and then taking it and taking what they've learned in school and then getting a lot of great information out of it. So we're kind of teaching them how to learn and making them own their own learning as well. We always take connections from the classroom to academy and then academy to classroom. So our big initiative at the middle school is evidence-based writing and writing claims based off of evidence. That's been everywhere in what we do in all of our activities, which I'll show you one example of an activity in a second. And then they bring that to academy, what they already learned. We take it even a bit further sometimes, and then they could bring it back into the classroom too. So they really do intersect, and they really do help each other out. Now, here's an example. Last week, we had Trooper Vetter come in Wednesday, I believe,
Yes.
and he did a phenomenal presentation on social media. Our students, as we started this second session, we just started at the beginning of February, we had them tell us what they wanted to learn about, and one of the things was social media. And it couldn't have been better timed. It's like we really worked together on it. Because Trooper Vetter was coming in to talk about social media. So the day before he comes in, we looked at a couple videos, we read an article together that showed different perspectives on social media. Maybe we saw what a student thinks, what a teacher thinks, and what parents think. And we were able to compare those things, and we were able to make claims off of it. And then we created a survey to give for students, to give to their peers. And there were 3 questions on the survey. First one was, what makes phones so addicting? I think it's the light. But number 2, what social media do you use the most? And 3, how much time do you spend on your favorite social media on a normal day? These were the questions that our students came up with, and we were going to put it to the whole school community at the middle school and then see what they said. So we came up with this survey. The next day, Trooper Vetter came in, gave a great presentation. The following day in their social studies classes, thank you to our social studies teachers for allowing us to take a minute or 2 to collect data. They gave this survey, and then our kids took it. We got them to look at it. They took their results. They used technology to look at those results, and I'm just going to show you a couple things that we got out of it. And this is all student-created stuff right here. Okay, so the first result to the question, what makes phones so addicting? This is just 7th grade. This is made by a 7th grader. Okay, a 7th grader who, before academy, I don't think would have been able to understand what to do with collecting data and sitting down and making a spreadsheet and then turning it into this right here. Okay, so social media was by far the thing that made it so addicting. We had apps and games. We had contacting people and friends, which isn't a phone supposed to be used to contact people? Whatever. Not anymore though. Mr. and Allie got really frustrated with that. We shouldn't call them phones anymore. But that's just 7th grade. And this wasn't actually the final product. We, on top of what we do with them trying to understand what people their age think when it comes to social media, we're also able to talk about things, is this a proper heading? Today we went back and looked at it one more time and we fixed it a little bit. Are you missing something down here? Okay, so we got into things like that, just making sure it makes sense to the viewer as well. So we hit on a lot of things as we are in the creation process. To the second question, what social media do you use most? This was a 6th grade result. I've never seen a graph or a table like this before, but a 6th grader made this. And I was like, whoa, what's going on here? So they explained to me, well, this is 73, that's about 50% of the total kids, that's why it's this big. 31's the next most, that's why it's the next biggest, and they explained it to me. And it was something that was really satisfying to see from a 6th grader. And then number 3, how much time, wait, 1 second here. In YouTube, we also had a big argument, is YouTube social media? They said yes, so we allowed it. Yes, it is. I don't know, I'm on the edge. How much time do you spend on your favorite social media on a normal day? You ready for this one? So we got here, 1 to 3 hours is 26%. 1 minute to an hour, 32. This one was a little scary. 5+ hour, 14% of 7th graders.
Wow.
And it was, this one was the most interesting. And by the way, another thing I just want to point out, getting our students to understand what's the best way to show data. Total 7th grade. The first thing we said to this kid was, to the student was, total 7th grade what? Okay, so them understanding the basics of good headings and things of that nature, but also, we took this information and some of the claims using this evidence was really great to see. And these are coming from students who aren't normally engaged at all. So I feel like that alone has really allowed them to take more ownership in what they're doing. And it has shown up in other places besides just at Academy too. So like I was just saying, showed other places. Early returns, colleagues of mine have come up to me and said, you have so-and-so at Academy, and they said, wow, like since that started, they've been so more into class, and they've said that they've seen some very simple pluses on the assessment side as well, whether it's formative or summative. They said that they could tell because they're more engaged with what we've been doing after school, it's seeped into the classroom as well. So that's been really nice to hear. Again, I don't have any hard data on that yet, but just early returns are that it's been working really well for our kids that have been showing up consistently. Excited students ready to participate. Every day I come into the cafeteria, we meet there after school, and I actually tell them you have to give me a space because they're like, what are we doing today? Getting their face in my face. They have to learn personal boundaries, those middle schoolers, but they're getting there. Okay, we'll get there eventually. We'll talk, we'll do a whole deep dive into personal space soon. And then we're recruiting other students. I mean, our students that are in Academy are going out and saying, hey, you should come to this. When we're after school, kids who might be walking by say, what is this? Can I come? And our answer is always, of course, because it is on a volunteer basis. And we have actually gained kids just from word of mouth from our students that have been involved in it. And then moving forward, I mentioned this earlier, we had our students create ideas for what we should do during Academy. First thing, we just got done with our social media investigation, kind of a week-long thing we dove into. These are student suggestions, and you have to remember, these are from students that don't have a history of being the most motivated. They want to make their own book. They want to make their own board game. Slime. I don't know. We got to look into that one a little bit, because me and Mr. Nally are not scientists, but we might look into slime. I'm interested. Racing and contests, they love competition. Then we did a race one day, we timed them, we found out their speed, distance versus time, we graphed it, we talked about it. These are all things that they're interested in learning about, and we have, I think, until March 20th, just before spring break, every Tuesday and Thursday to kind of get these things done, and we're really excited about it. And I guess lastly, show it off. This group of students, this is our bulletin just for After School Academy at the middle school. And this is actually, we're going to update it soon. But just for them to see their work being shown off, again, that goes a long way for this group of kids. They can see this is kind of the fruits of their labor coming out for their peers to see. I've seen them pointing out what they worked on specifically. I chose yellow for that piece of pie right there. But some of these students don't get that all the time. And it really has allowed them to take ownership of their learning, and really looking forward. Early on, it took some getting used to, that 2-hour block. It's the first time we're doing something like this. But I feel like now the kids that we have that have been there on a regular basis have been great. When new kids come in, they're able to explain what we're doing. And it's just really re-engaged our students. So I just want to say thank you for allowing me to kind of show this off to you, and I really would suggest that we keep this going in the future. Thank you very much.
How many kids do you have?
So we usually hover around 20 kids. Now we have 15 that are consistently there. Then the other 5 is like a friend they bring one day here or there.
That's great.
So to be off the top of my head, I don't know. I'd be interested to know actually how many different students have shown up at least once. But we always have, there's a group of 15 that show up every time, and we usually have 20.
Dan, do you do transportation for this, or is it parents?
Absolutely.
You'll transport them
Yeah,
home?
we have buses lined up and are there at 4:45.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about it is that that's after
Yeah.
all the runs are done, so there's always a bus, where sometimes our after-school buses, our late buses are canceled because we don't have enough drivers. There's always drivers available for this.
What a great idea.
Tom, I just want to commend your energy and your enthusiasm.
Yes,
This is amazing.
Thanks. I'm tired. No, thank you very much for the opportunity to kind of just show off a little
Thank you
bit.
very much for taking
Thank
the
you.
time.
Especially
Great
for being a
program.
Tuesday and still having this energy at 7:30.
I'm still going. I had a 3-day weekend. I'm fine. I had a long weekend. It's all good.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you want something up here or no?
Okay.
Hey, Tom, did I just hear that you got engaged?
Yes, thank you very much. Very exciting time. That's why when you asked me to do this, I was like, do I have something going on this weekend? Thank you.
Can you sleep now?
All right, moving on to acceptance of reports. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approved and acknowledges reviewing the following reports. Attendance report January 2nd to January 31st, 2018, and our internal claims audit report. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Ed, second by,
Should we do that, can we do them separately? Because I think there's an issue with B.
okay. So I'll entertain a motion for A, the attendance report. Can I have a motion, please? Moved by Sue, second by Ed. Discussion?
Just, maybe for the next report, and I don't know how difficult it would be, just from the board's perspective, because we did start the year talking about income and equity and some of those types of topics. Is there a way to break out that attendance report by subgroup? You could do free and reduced lunch and non-free and reduced lunch, and then by the ethnicity groups?
Sure, yeah, we'll break it down as much as we can.
If not, follow up with your school tool representative. Just to take a look at what's underneath that data, other than we've got 94% across the board.
Right.
That kind of, I think some of the board members would find that interesting.
The numbers also took a little downturn across the board. You could probably, health crisis.
National issue of sickness, absolutely. Yeah, no doubt about it.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. On the internal claims audit report, do you want to move that, table it?
Table that for the next meeting.
We'll, a motion to table the internal claims audit report. Motion by Tom, second by Mike. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Under curriculum and instruction, Joel, you're up.
How's everyone doing?
Good, Mr. Career.
I have a couple of updates and actually something that I'd like the board to possibly invite one of my students in the near future. I'll start with that. We had a second grader who, when she started kindergarten, for her birthday, which is in February on Valentine's Day, she wanted to have her class raise money for St. Jude's. So that was a project that she did in her kindergarten class. When she moved on to first grade, she talked to her teacher and she wanted to expand that, so she expanded it to all of the first grade classes. This year she approached our board of PTA and asked if she could expand it and do the entire school. I'm proud to say that Quinn, Aaron Holtz's desire to raise money for St. Jude's raised over $1,400. So she needs to be commended. I'd love to have the board recognize her. One of the things that we mentioned to Quinn when she was at the PTA meeting is that it seems like each year she's growing this, so next year maybe she can come to the board, do her presentation for you, which is adorable, and maybe we can get the entire school on board to help her with this project. We did have some groups join us. I know one of the groups from the high school submitted a donation to send off, and the students made Valentine's cards and raised money. It was like $1 per student or more if you chose, and so she was very excited. She came around today to thank us for that project, and you know, this is coming from her. This was not pushed by her parents. This was something, she saw a commercial when she was in kindergarten about St. Jude's, and she's like, I want to do something for them. So I'd love to have her be invited to a future board meeting, and maybe even do her presentation now so that we can get started early for next year. Okay. This is also Healthy Hearts Month, and we always do the Jump Rope for Heart fundraiser in our phys ed classes. All students will do the jump roping program. The fundraising that goes on there is always a donation to the American Heart Association. So that's one of our projects that we do each year. And also, it's also been confirmed now that we will be doing our, the name is escaping me because now I have St. Jude's on my mind. The fundraiser that we did at the end, the Diabetes Association. So that will be our run walk that we do in May, at the end of May. So that will be coming. On your table, you have a red bookmark. That was something that all of our students at the elementary school will be getting at the end of this month. As you know, this was our way of contributing to the Not My Child Night, was we did a Healthy Choices Day. So for the board members, I've also given you the pledge stickers. So as students signed off on the banner pledging to do their very best to live a happy and healthy life and to only choose healthy things to put into their bodies, they signed that pledge form and they got the blue sticker. We used up all the blue stickers, so I only have enough for the board members, so I apologize for those that don't have them. The red bookmarks, they formed words around our school. Our social worker, Dawn Palmer, spearheaded that, and there are words of reminding students about being healthy, respectful, responsible. In the 5th grade hallway, there's a Say No to Drugs banner that's made out of the bookmarks, and at the end of this month, all students will get one of those. And then the only other thing I wanted to add was something that we're adding on this year for Dr. Seuss's birthday, which is coming up next week. We will be doing a Seuss Week, which is basically a spirit week. I have one poster, I'll pass it down so you can see all the different activities the students will be taking part in each day. Basically a spirit week. We have one right now with our PBIS program. Today was Wear Sweatpants Day. So kids were wearing sweatpants, teachers wore sweatpants. They asked Mrs. Sickles and I why we didn't wear sweatpants, and we said we had a board meeting. So we got off the hook today. Tomorrow's mismatch day, so I don't know what we're going to do. We may. So I'm going to pass this down. You can see some of the activities that will be part of Seuss Week, which starts next week. Any questions?
Couple things, Joel.
Yeah.
Number one, do you think it's too early to bring Quinn in at our next board meeting? We have
I
another
can-
special presentation that evening, so I think it'd be appropriate that we'll have a decent crowd here. It'd be kind of
I
nice.
can check with her.
Yes,
All right, I can check.
March
with her.
6th.
Okay.
The other thing,
Yeah,
can you give us a quick snapshot of where we are with the building project, especially your secured vestibules in your building? functional yet or not?
There are no buzzer systems yet.
Okay.
It's still in the same state. The door going into the office from the vestibule, the lock was changed on that, so that's, but there's no buzzer yet. We still have the security guard at the door. Mr. Miller could speak more to the crash bars. I guess there's the crash bars on the outside of the door. For safety reasons, they can never be left unlocked. So the evenings are a problem because we don't have somebody there to open the doors all evening when there are events going on, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, things of that nature. So right now, the door is pinched, and the one door in the front is pinched open so that those folks can come and go because we don't have security or a staff member on in the evening.
Thank you. Any other questions for elementary school? Thank you.
Thanks, Joy.
Thank you.
Dan?
Good evening. I think what I'd like to say about the After School Academy, and you can see just how incredible Mr. Trusello is. He is a fabulous teacher. One of the things it's done is it's given them the opportunity to really not be a math teacher or not be a social studies teacher, but just be a teacher. They're integrating all these things together. You can see how that included social studies, math, English, emotional stuff, kids talking about all kinds of stuff that's real for kids. And we're really moving more and more in that direction in the classroom all the time to make those integrations. The slime, I'm guessing they're going to get a science teacher in on it. I'm thinking there'll be one there volunteering in the After School Academy. But it's really pretty great to watch. And when it's that real, kids do buy in. They absolutely do. The thinking project on here, we did go through it today in our faculty meeting. Thanks to Jody for getting right on those scores. Jody, thank you very much. You put them all in, printed out reports. We are definitely seeing improvement from the administration in September to now. Almost every single area improved. We have more work to do, and our goals are lofty for the end of the school year, but now we're targeting instruction to get us to the end of the school year and show more improvement. And we're now looking into our second administration of the benchmarks. Jody's putting that data together to see where we are and what we've done since we entered. That's it for now. Any questions?
When will we have a report about the benchmarks?
Well, I'm about halfway through doing the benchmarks right now, so I suspect I'll finish getting all the data in this week or probably early next week I'll be done, so maybe.
Certainly next time I get up here talking to you, I'll be talking
Absolutely,
about
next
those.
time.
Okay? All right.
Dan, you said that you saw improvement across the board. So what's some evidence that you use to back up a statement like that?
We have, the way the thinking project works is that we have students read, and it's read to them, but they also read along, an article. It's a short article, lengthier depending on the grade. Then they have to make a claim about that article, and it can be anything they believe is true, and then support that with evidence. And then all the teachers score that, right? And we've seen where it's scored on a rubric, a 5-point rubric from 0, which is no claim and no evidence, up to 5, which is a very strong, thorough claim, supported very thoroughly with evidence. And we've seen children move up that. Our students with disabilities, I'm remembering just one I saw off the top of my head. In all 3 grade levels, our students with disabilities improved dramatically from, I think 6th grade was, their average score was a 0.68, and this last one was like a 1.48 within this mark, 5 months of instruction.
Okay.
So and I can bring that graph and show it to you. We literally just had it today, we printed it out today, but I can get that to you and show it so you can see it.
I'm just curious, because I think those exercises are correlated to the standards and assessments, but.
This is this is straight from the state and their evidence-based writing information that they talk about there. That's where we pulled out this work from.
Thank you.
Good?
Yeah, what's the cell phone policy in your school?
As far as kids using them,
Having them on them, having them
Yep.
active during the school day, or?
we have it's done, the basic policy is if you're seen with your cell phone, using it, not just in your back, if it's sticking out your back pocket, that's not a problem at all, because everybody carries them around. If you're seen using it without permission, the phone is taken, you're escorted to the office, it's put in the office, your name goes on the phone, you can pick it up at the end of the day. That's the first time. We keep record of it. The second time, there was a telephone call home, and you pick it up at the end of the day. The third time, there's a telephone call home, there's a discipline referral, and the parent has to pick up the phone. Okay? Now, if teachers use phones, personal devices in classrooms, so as long as they're given permission, the students have permission, they can use it in the classroom. And I tell them very clearly that that permission ends right at the door. Right?
Thank you.
Dan, just a question on security, and I certainly would not bring this up in this manner if it hasn't already been brought up. Out on social media, there was some concerns posted about a back door at the middle school being unlocked potentially. And like I said, I would not bring it up if it weren't already discussed, so just wanted to see if you can provide any information.
Absolutely, and I went right and checked on it again, the way we've done, didn't start right at the beginning of the year, but it was the hope that we would have the buzzer system at the beginning of the year, but we did not. That door now is locked at 7:15. Kids don't go to Alpha buses until 7:20. All right, so teachers can come in there until 7:15. That door's locked, and then they have to go around to the front.
So what time, it's open for a little while?
It's open for a while, as you know, people come in through that door. Buses open their doors at 7:20, so we get it closed. What I went back and checked was, I reiterated that is priority number one for the staff member, to have that door locked at 7:15. Unless there's a true emergency in the building, the first responsibility is to have that door locked at 7:15.
Is there anybody standing there while it's unlocked?
From 7:15 till about 7:25, I have somebody there until, in case we need to open it for some teacher carrying things or doing things like that, but otherwise that door is locked. And then, as soon as we begin first period, we do our announcements. The teacher who does the announcements then mans the front door and lets people in the front door, so Will Sutton can go around and make sure every door in the building is secure immediately. So, and then he makes that check 3 to 4 times a day to make sure.
I think there was a misunderstanding that just because I'm a staff member, I have the key to the outside doors. It doesn't sound like that's the case if you have to leave it open.
Correct.
So they don't have the key to those doors to get in the building from that side.
No. As a matter of fact, I've had teachers petition me for keys. I've said, we're not giving out keys, master keys to the building. So, so you need to come around the front.
So here's a question, and we might not have the answer, it's something that could be looked into. Is there a common key on the inside of the building where a core could be changed, where the teacher has the key on that door that could get them in, but yet it remains locked for others on the outside? Right, it's a core. You see what I'm saying with the cores?
Yeah.
So like, let's say every teacher's key opens up the bathroom, a particular bathroom.
Right.
Could we replicate that core on that door?
I'm not sure if that exists at the middle school.
Right.
Is this the door by the gymnasium?
No,
This is the lower?
This is the door by that garage shed thing,
Down
out
at the
there,
lower.
whatever we're gonna call that.
I know which one, the lower by the basement, yeah.
That's the door, that's the only other door that's open and then that door is locked at 7:15. And then everybody comes in the front.
And that's utilized by a lot of staff, because you've got very few parking spots down in the lower level.
I'm assuming
A lot of,
Excuse me, you can't interrupt the meeting. We're not in public comment right now, all right?
a lot of staff use that door. They walk around, they'll come, tons of people come in that whole part. Parking is there, and then they park all around in single file around the back of the building. They park behind the gym. And I think as well, people who park on the side of the gym come around, and it's easier for them to come in that door.
What's to keep other people from coming in?
Before 7:15, anybody can come through that door. That's why it's locked at that time. They can come in any door. Well, no, all the doors are locked, but they could come in, they could come right in the front door before. We're not necessarily manning every door with a security
Still the
person.
front door doesn't lessen it, but it's still the front.
I mean, that door, I think the front door gets open earlier. And then Will comes in at his time, sets up, and
But that's all prior to student arrival.
That's
so
all prior to
that's before the students arrive. They're perimeter secure.
as soon as, before they arrive, it's all secure.
This, the entrance and exits to the building is just gonna be a conversation that is gonna span multiple meetings, I know.
Sure.
And I know that there's work that's being done on that. I'm not clear on, is the work scheduled to be done? I'm not clear on the funding. This was the first time I heard Smarter Schools attached to some of that money as well. I mean, I knew it was all, I didn't know that it hadn't been approved. You know, this is something that the board might have to take action on through a lease purchase agreement through BOCES or something sooner. I don't think we keep knocking this around because I think at the end of the day, we'll share with our community and ourselves. We want those doors locked and we want automated controls to open them and close them. Especially
That's what we
in
want.
the hours pre and post and everything in between our students and our kids being there. So we've got to get a, Mr. Bon Jovi, we've got to get a handle on what's the funding, where are we with the project. If it's not off the ground, we have other avenues, like we do for the buses, and we get a lot of aid on that. You do a separate ban or other funding mechanism
Yes.
that still gets us the aid, but expedites this important work.
I think your point before, Mike, was that possibly those other 3 exterior doors outside of the main entrance can have their cores changed and issue keys to the staff.
We need a real hard, right, it could be.
That's a simple fix, yeah.
Right.
Right.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few additions to the high school principal's report. You've already heard about Trooper Vetter. I'm going to say a little bit about him as well. New York State Trooper Craig Vetter presented to our entire student body last Thursday, the 16th of February. Trooper Vetter discussed all the dangers that he could talk about related to social media, as well as different avenues students can take to protect their identity, both online and in person. The presentation was very well received by both students and faculty, and many students were later overheard discussing the contents of the assembly throughout the day. It was a very highly engaging presentation, I have to say. I believe that he did it twice. The first period was to 9th and 11th graders, and the following period he presented to 10th and 12th graders. I'm very confident that the students probably would have stayed another period or two to sit and listen to him talk. It was that engaging. We were all amazed, but we were happy to have him. Also, on Tuesday, January 30th, 2 of our students, Kev Marlowe and Nick Metz, they were chosen by their Scoutmaster to represent our community by participating in the torch relay for the Empire State Winter Games. I've heard about this when they came into school late, and I said, hey, why are you late? What's going on? He said, they said, well, we were running the Empire torch. I said, tell me about it. So he told me about it, and I asked Kev to email me a little blurb about it. So I'm going to quote him. He said that, according to our student Kev Marlowe, he said, quote, we ran the torch from the frozen caboose near the walkway to Tony Williams Park. It was a great time, and it felt nice to represent Scouting, Highland High School, and our cross-country team. And we were given free t-shirts to commemorate the occasion. So I say kudos to both Kev and Nick for their participation. I'm very happy to report that. I'm also happy to report that our competition cheer team, aka our cheerleaders, they competed at Section 9 Championship on on February 17th, on Friday that was. Our team came in 3rd place against 5 other schools, and I say congratulations to Coach DeStacy and the members of our competitive cheer team. Finally, as I speak right now, our varsity girls basketball team is playing FDR in the semi-championship M Hall game at SUNY Ulster right now. It started 58 minutes ago. If they win, or if we win, well, we'll play the M Hall championship game on Thursday, this Thursday at 7 p.m. at SUNY Ulster. Go Huskies. So I'm hoping you have good news about that. I didn't hear anything. I haven't checked I got a text, but I didn't. No, I didn't. No update. Any questions? That's all I'm anticipating.
I have to brag, Yep, I sent an email out, Mark, last week. One of my colleagues at Ulster BOCES said, boy, bully for you, bully for Highland. I said, what are you talking about? And apparently it was in the Middletown paper that Highland School District had the highest graduation rate for 2017 in Ulster County. And I did not know that, so I had to give my commendations to you and to all the staff for all the hard work. I know times can change, maybe things could be different in 18, but this is just so exciting to see us the highest graduation rate out of the entire county of Ulster and the second highest in the county of Dutchess.
I'm happy to
Really?
pass on the congratulations
Yeah.
to our
Yeah.
staff and faculty
It's just
and our students.
wonderful.
Very exciting.
I was very impressed with the trip at the Forest and Antwerp. Train,
Yes.
subway, 62 kids, no problem.
No problem. I was stressed here, and I wasn't even on the train with them. And I was stressed about it. I know how it is. We all know how it is in the city with the doors
Well, that's
shutting
the
and.
first time, right? I mean, I think before it was always busing.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I think, I told both of our music teachers who went, I said, I think that's a great skill for the kids to have, that, many of them have never been on the subway in the city. When they do go, it's bus or within their parents' car, so it was I was told it was fantastic. Nobody was lost, none of the teachers were lost. They had a backup plan. I made them explain to me what the backup plan is, just in case somebody was separated. But it all went off without a hitch, so it was happy. And moreover, they had a wonderful experience with the music at Lincoln Center, so great time was had by all.
I thought that was amazing. I think kudos for them for even thinking to do the train.
Yeah.
We've had
groups that have done
it.
it.
Yeah.
We've had that large.
Usually smaller groups though, I think.
Counting the pages, right.
Yeah, smaller, when you can do a head count quick and say,
Yeah,
come on this
exactly.
way. So,
Very nice.
thank you.
Bill, same question for you. as
That's
far
what I
as
was anticipating.
You maintain in the morning just two
There are
entrances?
two entrances, the front doors and then doors right in the back, next to the boiler room by the cafeteria. They're both unlocked at 7:20 when students are allowed in, and they're locked at 7:40 as soon as the first period starts. Between Mr. Judge, myself, and Wade Sargent, our security guard, we constantly walk around between the two entrances of the cafeteria.
But you're saying the cafeteria entrance in the main, not the one by the gymnasium?
No, it's not in the gymnasium, it's it's the one next to it, yeah, because I'm usually at the front doors, but it's the one right behind the cafeteria, the entrance there. Not in the cafeteria, we have a few teaching assistants who man the cafeteria in the morning there, so that frees us up this year, that's new this year, so we're able to stand by the doors and welcome students. So generally speaking, one of us is in the back as the driving students come in and walk into school, and one of us is always at the front to welcome the students off the bus. 7:40, everything gets locked up and we go and check all the doors and make sure we're secure.
Is there the possibility of us having constant watch at those entrances on all three buildings? Any entrance that staff or students use in the morning into the building, I think should be monitored.
Sure, we might have to, that might involve adjusting some people's hours, but I don't think that would be an issue.
I mean, what's the board's feeling?
Prior to them locking the doors. go
Yeah,
back.
prior to
Yeah.
when school, once
Yeah.
students arrive and all doors are
All
locked,
doors
all
are
three
locked,
doors are
yes.
locked, and the only entrance is through the main where we have
Right.
our security. But prior to that,
During-
it just seems like it's basically open to the public.
Good.
It is,
So
we're
it's
always
great.
standing at the door, but yes,
Right.
it's an open door.
Are there cameras in all of the doors in all of the buildings?
No.
We don't have to.
No.
Something,
That's in part of the project.
oh, it is, it's
We'll
part of the
talk about
contract?
part of the contract.
Okay, it is.
That project's
Okay.
like the ragu, everything's in there, it's just we can't, you gotta get it off the ground, right? It's all in there.
So we'll talk about that, the idea of that at cabinet, and we'll put our heads together.
Just until we get,
Yes.
even before. As long as we.
Like the ragu.
Any other questions?
That's
for
always
Bill?
fun.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Put that in a minute.
Yeah, that's ragu, got it.
No, you're not. That's not me, it's
Yes.
Right.
Quote, yeah, quote that.
Jody?
Good evening, everyone. To briefly recap what I wrote in my report, the middle school has finished grading the second math. The teachers have finished grading the second math benchmark exams, and I'm about halfway through putting all the data into the computer. So I figure I'll be done about it next week, and then we'll start having some meetings to talk about it at the middle school. At the elementary school, kindergarten, third and fifth grade have completed their testing. I have already completed the analysis of kindergarten's tests. They've gotten back to me very quickly. And I'm still waiting for third and fifth to get theirs graded. And I expect to have that done over the next couple of weeks. And then the second and fourth grade are given their benchmark this week. So then I'll be getting theirs as soon as they're graded, and I'll get that information in. Again, the middle school completed their mid-year thinking project, and I got those scores in that did the data on them today, and they looked really good. And lastly, I completed the strategic plan scorecards for each school, which I think Mr. Bon Jovi has given to you. And that's really all that I have written down. Does anyone have any questions?
Have we received?
No, you haven't
strategic-
received it, I have that.
I can-
He's gonna give them to you.
I got you.
There's a lot of data going on.
Judy, there's a policy that we have to, that we're working on BOCES that apparently is very time sensitive and it has to do with the food service program. Are you,
Which policy is it, the lunch shaming?
yes, and I thought it was pretty aggressive, like where we have to have it adopted soon.
I thought that, if I have to go back and look, to be honest with you, but Sarah, I thought that we had put one in place and that there's some tweaking that needs to be done. We looked at
Okay,
the new, that came down, and there's still some issues that need to be worked out with exactly how they're gonna handle
Right,
people that aren't paying for their lunch, so.
Right.
But I know that we do have the basic policy in place, but I know they're looking at change. And I think we've got the required, the legal, one that
okay,
we
so
have
you
to have in
feel
place.
comfortable that we're okay? for
I believe
now?
so, but I will check.
Yes, you
again, to be
approved that a
honest.
couple of years ago.
But,
when
yeah,
we
this is
originally did
something
it.
very, very recent. that-
Yes,
Yeah.
but there hasn't
So
been
is
a,
it in the school boards magazine, is that?
yeah, there hasn't been a lot of direction about, I mean, on the books, we still need to have, we still need to have a policy for what we do if a student can't pay for lunch. Or breakfast for that matter, I guess. And from a federal standpoint, from a federal school lunch program standpoint, when we're audited, if we're giving away food, that is a problem for us. Now, the state, you heard the governor has made this one of his priorities for his year, wants to go in maybe a little bit different direction, but we haven't really resolved the two yet.
I will tell you my personal feeling, getting written up for giving a child food is something I will accept all day long.
I'm completely with you on that and have
So-
been since I started in this position.
I think the question is, we're always harping on, not harping, we're critical of our food service program and trying to keep income equal to expenses, and we know that that hasn't been the case. We know we've made real improvement. But the idea is, if I'm not mistaken, Ontiora, as a board, said, we're gonna fill in that gap.
I
If there's a deficit, because whatever the reason is, and I'm sure we sent them 1,000,000 letters and 10, messages and voice. If there are students out there with unpaid food expenses, that there's a mechanism to make the food service program whole. Ergo, they all get fed. There's a tally somewhere. Now, there shouldn't be shaming, or the lunch shaming goes to if I'm not one who has money in my account and my parent or guardian hasn't taken the steps to fill out a free and reduced lunch application and go through the process,
They shouldn't be penalized.
then I get, the cheese sandwich on white bread, and we all know what that means, or. So as a board, we can explore
I would love to explore it.
how to just do
I would
that.
love to have more conversation
Yes.
about that, because it's definitely something, Maria's
I
not
think
here
the board's
tonight, but
open
it's something
to
that
that.
she's concerned about. And I think, Mike, you're absolutely right, that
Onto your
shaming
end, they
children
did
for
that.
something that their parents do or don't do is not. And I will say that each of our buildings does a tremendous amount of work to try to either get back payment, so to speak, or to connect parents with the free and reduced. I mean, really, our social workers are looking at that list constantly, are making contact with the students, are making contact with parents. So we do work very hard to try to figure out what other support they may need as well.
And we know who that population
We do.
is, it's obviously confidential, but this isn't, hey, nobody's gotta worry about paying for lunch and the whole, you know, we're
Still should get
feeding.
their hot lunch.
We know who this vulnerable population is.
So we have had a couple of meetings about that. We know about the policy, we've had a couple of meetings about it, and I think as soon as they firm up exactly the language, it's moving forward, it's just,
Okay, because I'm pretty sure we're close to adopting the policy at BOCES next week, because there's such a fire on it. And I just want to make sure we're okay too.
I think it might depend on whether they had something in writing before or not, too. But,
No, we did.
yeah.
If there's something we have to have, usually legal puts a brief on it.
Yes.
So I don't know if they've seen, if they've seen
Okay.
anything.
yeah, they send us updates through Erie one too, we subscribe to them, and so anything that comes out that's new and has to be done, Erie one sends me an email message, and then I forward it, I either ask Sarah, do we have this, do you want me to do this, and I usually, she'll tell me yes, and then it gets forwarded to the attorneys, and then, so they do keep us up to date on things.
Good enough.
I did have a question for you, Jody, and it might be for the future report or something. So we are collecting a lot of data, and we are data rich in schools. I'm curious to know what decisions have been made based upon the data.
Yeah, that's something that I can, one of them is the after school.
For example,
Yeah.
Right, for example, we are using the benchmark examinations to recruit more kids for the after-school academy. All right, the first benchmark, some kids didn't do well on, we're working on bringing in some more kids. We're using the thinking project data to direct instruction about what part might be missing and where we need to improve. For instance, there was a whole discussion today on the kids that still had a 0 on their, they had no claim and they had no evidence. How are we gonna address those kids specifically to start getting them, will the instruction be basically just to get them to realize what a claim is? Instead of the other end of always furthering it. So we're gonna tailor instruction to that group of kids. Those are the kind of discussions that we're having with
and
the
you
data.
put that in a math context or just the after-school context?
We put it, that's a whole discussion with every staff member in the building. That happened in a faculty meeting today.
All right, just as
In
you're
elementary
doing
as
your
well.
report and you're putting your report, something
Just
to
like
think
in
about would be,
Right.
what decisions have we made based upon all of the data?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of different decisions that, it's amazing how, it's funny, each team looks at the data and they kind of see different directions and different ways to build it. The elementary school, each grade level is very different, the way that they approach it, but every one of them, when I meet with them, finds things that they need to tweak the curriculum here and there based on benchmarks that were given, so it is.
Yeah, and I'm not looking for the individual pieces.
Just the
grade level.
overall.
Subject area, new program initiative, that would be
Sure.
of interest to me.
That's good,
Thanks, Jody.
thank you.
Patrick's not here this evening. Are there any questions in regards to special education minutes? Or, I'm sorry, pupil personnel services? Okay, approval on Committee on Special Education minutes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the Committee on Special Education according to the minutes of the CSE meetings of January 25th, 29th, along with the month of February 2nd, 8th, and 12th. CSC, the amendment agreement, no meetings, January 18th, 23rd, 24th, 25th, 29th, and the CSE meeting, no meeting, transfer in January 10th. This committee authorizes the arrangements for such students' special education programs and services. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Deb, second by Mike. Tom, discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? So carried. Approval of Committee on Preschool Special Education, be it resolved, the Board of Education hereby accepts the recommendation of the Committee on Preschool Special Education according to the minutes of the CPSC meeting of January 24th and 31st. CPSC, no meeting, transfer in, none to report. Amendment agreement, no meeting, none to report. This committee authorizes the arrangements for such student special education programs and services. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Tom, second by Deb. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Personnel, are we okay taking personnel as a block from A through F?
Yes, but I did have a question about B. I don't know if that's exec session or not.
Do you want to go into exec for a minute to discuss it? Do you want to take it?
Yeah, I think it would be very quick. I don't want to table it necessarily. Oh, Hannah? That's one. And the other one's a vote? Yeah, no, that one. Okay, we'll move forward. Thank
Okay,
you.
we'll take it as a block.
Please.
Okay, we have a motion to take personnel as a block from A through F. Motion by Tom, second by Sue. We do have some recognitions after we vote, and our superintendent will recognize those individuals. There is a motion to accept personnel as a block from A through F. And all, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
So we have,
Excuse me,
Who motioned that?
who motioned and
It
seconded?
was Tom and Sue.
Thank you.
so Teresa is here? Yes. Teresa wanted to stand up, so welcome Teresa, food service helper. Thank you very much, and welcome to the family. And Kane is here. Kane is the school district computer technician. Very much.
You're gonna be busy.
Welcome.
Yes, we're gonna keep you both busy.
Everybody turn around and just paint.
We all need your cell phone number.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Dean, you're up.
Good evening. I first want to say I was surprised that Mr. Zimmer didn't talk about our new announcement system. And
On my list, I thought you might. We didn't get a chance to talk today. Usually we talk. What are you gonna talk about? I'll talk about this.
Good evening.
I was hoping you would.
yes, we have a new announcement system, which is really nice because I can hear the announcements much better. Hopefully, I'm not in all the rooms when the announcements are going, but hopefully it works in all the rooms now. And it is an interesting doorbell, but it's like ding, but it's good. It's a change.
We had several choices from which to choose, the sounds, and Mr. Judge, myself, and the two ladies in the main office sat down on Friday, and we listened to all of them. We spent about an hour on it, and we chose what we thought were the least offensive ones. So the ones to go from class to class is a doorbell sounding tone. It's relaxing and soothing. Hopefully that's what the kids, I didn't get much feedback yet.
Something new to get used to.
So go on, Dean, I'm sorry. Yes, it is.
Maybe you could buy more on the App Store for 99 cents.
I wonder, it would be worth it, because, yes.
I wanted to reiterate congratulations to the girls varsity basketball team to getting to sectionals. Also congratulate Matthew Moharo on getting to states for wrestling. That's my sports update. My clubs, Mom United Nations, had an excellent trip to Boston. The weekend was filled with lively debates on topics from rights of Indigenous people to the effects of climate change on the world tourism industry to how to plan a prom. In addition, a junior at the school, Sai Gokanda, I may pronounce that wrong, won honorable mention.
Didn't you get something?
Yes, he did.
Oh,
He got a verbal
I won a
commendation.
verbal accommodation too.
Oh.
National Honor Society hosted a successful senior citizen luncheon with about 35 seniors, with the support of the wonderful cafeteria staff, and I want to just give them recognition and thanks because it always is very helpful. Maria and Vicky and all of the other staff members are always a great help and really make the day very simple and easy and always very accommodating. In addition, the National Honor Society would like to invite all the board members to attend our induction ceremony on April 10th at 6:30 p.m. I'll send you emails when it gets closer to remind you. So yes, Student Council, for March we usually sell shamrocks to raise money to cure muscular dystrophy, so that's our next project for Student Council. Mock Trial is getting prepared to have their first competition. I believe it's this Thursday. The high school PTSA is having a meeting tomorrow in the library at 6 p.m. The Fed Challenge Club has begun researching and meeting to prepare for their upcoming competition on the 13th of March. Model UN is also currently very busy getting everything in order to host our very own conference at SUNY New Paltz in April. And to prepare for this, we've decided to do a mini mun, which we're going to host a little debate in our advisor's classroom, Mr. Matson, with maybe some local districts to prepare and start practicing parliamentary procedure and just getting in the swing of things so when the day comes in April, we're all prepared and ready to be chairs for that day. The Interact Club is currently still finalizing who they'll be joining their dance proceeds. We're definitely discussing donating to the new public library, maybe some furniture, some books. We see it as a great opportunity to give back to our whole community that they can all use at the library. We also are definitely going to be donating again to the backpack program, which we have been working with for the past couple of years, and it's really cool to see some of our students be able to go and fill those backpacks and pass them out to the families that might not get the food over the weekend and are more dependent on school lunches. I also, the State Trooper Craig Vetter came last week. It was an enjoyable presentation. And then also the school musical has decided to put on the show the 25th annual Putnam Spelling Bee, and that will be hosted on Friday, April 27th and Saturday, April 28th. Times to be announced. Field trips. Last Tuesday, the Physical Education Department had a field trip to Saugerties to go ice skating. The senior Disney trip is fastly approaching for, I believe it's March 17th to March 20th. And on March 16th, Interact Club plans to visit the veterans at the Castle Point Hospital to thank them for their service and bring some St. Patrick's Day spirit. On the topic of the Florida school shooting, I'm lost for words. I think it's really sad and scary to see students of my age and peers to be shot down in a place where we're supposed to be safe and get education. And it's sort of difficult because we are so far away from Florida that there might feel this sort of disconnect, but I think this is not a time to think, oh, that's in Florida, but, take action and, just think about it and see what we can do to proceed. And, it's encouraging when I see other students. Today we've had a couple of conversations in the past week in a few classrooms just discussing thoughts and what have people proposed and listening to students from that school giving. And I think it's hopeful to see students getting involved, and I think it's important to sort of get that discussion going and not just, school shootings, but being active in the political atmosphere and, making a difference and not just, letting things happen and standing up. And I hope that there is, from a student, there is action taken in the government and that we can pursue more secure policies. So, thank you.
Dean, one thing I have to say, the students in Florida, I am amazed at their response to this. And I really feel change coming. And there's something different. There's something different going on in our country. And they're just amazing young people.
Dean, if I might,
I think they're gonna start something.
I hope so, and I agree.
This is a little bit on different tack, but I feel like I can talk to you as someone who's remarkably responsible for a member of your generation. And you have an amazing ability to communicate. And so I want to express to you, while it shouldn't be in the realm of your responsibilities as students, because there's so much going on in life, every time I reflect on these instances and these occurrences, we're looking at a fringe element, an individual who's been isolated, an individual who's hurting, and an individual who feels that he's been, he or she or whoever, has been somehow put outside of the function of society. And that's what triggers them to move in this very destructive and evil way. The front line in the defense, whatever political realm it be, unfortunately is you as a peer and your peer group to recognize and to reach out to people that you think might be isolated, might be on a fringe group, to, as Alan said in the beginning, to see, if you see something, say something. If you don't feel it's within your ability to, if you see someone who seems to be put off by the rest of the group or feels isolated by the group, to let teachers and administrators know, to create an awareness so that hopefully we can stop this before it even reaches that point. It will probably happen years before it culminates to this most destructive fashion. But I think if you can, and again, I point to you as an incredible communicator and a very charismatic one, reach out to you, make them aware to look around you, look at the students around you, see if there's anybody who is isolated and may need help or may need someone to reach out and bring them in. And maybe we can stop something before it even begins.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and definitely will do that. And sorry, this is on a different topic.
Your report.
I had, this is on a way, but talking about what you guys were talking about as, I wasn't here last year when the capital project was going on. I'm a little confused when we keep talking about these new systems for like entryways and like, what is that exactly? Are they scanning a card? Is it, how are they, like the goal of these new ways for teachers to get into access the building through the doors? Is it, what is the system?
So I believe they would use their IDs.
Yeah.
A lot of schools have that where you just swipe out the door and that unlocks the door. So the doors are always locked, every door.
Except for the students.
Is every door getting wired? I mean, it could be every door or it could be a subset.
There's only
Every
certain doors
outside
usually
door is
that are
getting
wired,
wired.
wasn't it?
Every door will have card access, not every door will have
Not
card
every door will have
access,
card
but every door
access.
will be monitored.
It's usually the most,
Right, the most used.
5 or
doors.
6 of the most
Right.
frequently used doors they
Right.
wire up.
And then there'll be increase of cameras in each school, than what we currently have, both interior and exterior.
My understanding is all the doors would be wired, and the monitoring system will tell you if the door is.
If a door's ajar, somebody puts a rock
Yeah.
in, right.
Joel, at your school, you got, how many classrooms you have outside doors?
They all do just about.
Well, everything in the old building, the old section, so 75% of the building is outside doors.
Okay, anything else?
Good and bad.
No, that's all, thank you.
Good, everybody,
Right.
any questions for
Thank you,
Dean?
Dean, very much.
Thank you, Dean.
Nice job.
Under Business and Operations, Health and Welfare Contract, Kingston City School District be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent, approves the 2017-18 Health and Welfare Contract for 6 students at a cost of $947 per student for a total of $5,682 with the Kingston City School District, and authorizes the Board President and District Clerk to execute the contract. Are those numbers correct, Heather?
I slipped on my duty.
They're gonna be in a minute.
We're relying on you now.
Watch it.
Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Motion by Heather, second by Mike. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. 2018 school bus bond borrowing, be it resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, approve the authorization to purchase 8 school buses for use by the Highland Central School District, Ulster County, New York, at a maximum estimated cost of $750,000, and authorizes the issuance of obligations of said school district in the amount of $721,171.69 to pay the cost thereof. Whereas at the annual school district election and vote on the budget of the Highland Central School District, duly called, held, and conducted on May 15, 2018, a majority of the duly qualified voters of said school district voting thereat approved the proposition authorizing the purchase of 5 65-passenger school buses, 3 29-passenger school buses, and 1 suburban vehicle at an aggregate estimated cost not to exceed $750,000, and providing for the levy of a tax thereof, therefore, to be collected in annual installments with obligations of said school district to be issued in anticipation thereof. And whereas it is now desired to provide for the financing thereof and for other matters in connection herewith, in accordance with said proposition that is presented to the board at this meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
Yeah.
Motion by Mike, second by...
Yeah, you'll roll call.
Yeah,
She's gotta go
roll call.
individually, but let's get it
Yes,
to
I
the
have
floor.
a question. I think a discussion needs to take place. This is in regards to last year's budget that had passed in May, when you had passed the proposition. This is now to take the funds to purchase the school buses. This is separate from the
Oh, the
bus.
bond borrowing, I'm
Right.
sorry.
The bus proposition.
2017 was correct.
Right.
I'll correct
Don't worry
myself.
about it, Alan, I
It
had
is
made that
17.
same mistake when I typed it.
Right, so these are the buses that were approved
We're
last
borrowing now,
year.
we're
not
Now
approving these.
you're borrowing the money to purchase
We got a motion
Okay.
and a second by Heather.
Yes.
Right,
Heather.
so, and then I'm going to do a
Roll call.
roll call. So, after I state your name, just say yes or no. Okay. Heather Welch,
Yes.
Ed Mizell,
Yes.
Mike Bakaxias,
Yes.
Debbie Pagano,
Yes.
Sue Gilmore,
Yes.
Tom Miller,
Yes.
Alan Barone.
Yes.
Okay. That's all in favor, 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Revised affidavit of collector on paid taxes, be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, authorizes the revised amount of unpaid school taxes to the 2017-18 in the amount of $1,787,977.78 as presented to the board at this meeting. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Heather, second by Ed. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Budget discussion for 2018-19 school year. We don't
So
have a lot.
there's nothing more to report. So we are really having discussions with our administrators at the building level. Ms. Lynch is working on the numbers for the board as far as the rollover. So it's still a little early, so at the next board meeting, Ms. Lynch will have more information from the Board of Education.
Getting back to the bus proposition, have they looked at that? I know we had some discussion at our last meeting as far as, increasing maybe one of the vans. Has that happened, or are they just gonna bring back that same presentation for us to?
I believe they're gonna bring back the same. I don't think they
That's
feel the
fine.
need for it.
Needed, right.
Okay.
So
that'll-
we appreciate the
Sounds like we're
support.
gonna need some IT work.
Yes.
We'll put the money there.
That will have to take place prior to March
Probably,
20th.
right, be probably at
March
next,
20th.
March 6th, or the
Or
next
about
meeting.
March 6th or the 20th.
Yes.
Okay.
Tom, at that time, will you have a proposition for the capital project? Because are we putting it on the same ballot?
We're gonna have that discussion as we move forward.
Oh, is that, I
Should.
should know.
Yes.
I'll hold my question.
All right.
Okay. Sarah?
So last week, Jody had mentioned it a little bit in her report, but she was not able to attend, so I went to a professional development session at BOCES, an all-day session run by Jen Borgioli, who is affiliated with, forgot who she's with, what group she's with, Giselle Martin, yeah. And it was, the idea of it is about creating common assessments, and then also talking about the data that goes with it. But the real force of the conversation is about common assessments. And so since we have benchmark assessments at the elementary school and benchmark assessments at the middle school, we had a large team from each of those buildings there to look at the benchmarks that they've given and listen to the presenter talk about, what makes reliable and rigorous testing. Some of the conversation was about formative versus summative assessment. Formative is assessment that you're doing on a regular daily basis to see where students stand. Summative is those assessments that you give at the end of a unit or really to test where students are. I sat mainly with the middle school teachers, although I was with the elementary school some. Patrick Boyd was also there with a small group of teachers from the high school who are looking at, I think he mentioned it in his report, are looking at some progress monitoring in-house assessments for our students with disabilities at the high school. So very rich conversation that came from those, the presentation of the professional developer and thinking about the best way to not only create the test or to modify the benchmarks, but also what that means for your instruction then on the other side of it and how you use that instruction. So it was definitely a day well spent. In the second half of the day, she talked about other methods of assessment and then looking at things like checklists and rubrics for tasks that are less black and white, so to speak, that are a little bit more holistic. So it was a good day. That was the second part of a 3-part training. The third part of that was in not until May. So they did have a little bit of homework to bring back with them in May. So it was a good day. It was pretty much the full math department from the middle school. So it was good for those people to be able to sit together and talk about their benchmark assessments and how it has changed their instruction and how they're looking at instruction overall. Friday was a half-day professional development for teachers in the afternoon. Students had a half day in the morning. Each building had a little bit different direction that they were going in. The elementary school was looking at released questions from New York State assessments and looking at some of that data. I think that was work that you had done the first day of that professional development training. And again, seeing how that impacts what they're doing in the classroom on a daily basis. The middle school was scoring their thinking project because the students took the assessment in the morning and then they did scoring in the afternoon. And to me, one of the things that's very important about the thinking project, and I think one of the reasons that we're seeing the results that we are, is that the whole school is involved. Literally, every teacher of every subject is looking at those tests and seeing how students write, so that even if perhaps a content area is not traditionally a writing content area, they're still working on making a claim and using evidence to support that claim. So even though they may not be writing it out, they're still training themselves to think in that way. For instance, I know the PE teachers do some activities where students have to prove their claim. So that work was happening at the middle school. At the high school, one of our social studies teachers, Christina Saylor, we're very proud. She's going to be presenting at the state social studies conference on a fishbowl technique that she uses, and so she used the high school faculty as a little bit of a guinea pig for her presentation, not only to let herself practice before she goes, but also to share that technique with others in the building. And that was before lunch, very well received. And then after lunch, our teachers were doing a webinar from our new website company so that they can look at how to work on their own website. That afternoon, I worked with all the TAs and aides in the district in this room, and we did a refresher on confidentiality. which I had planned on taking a half an hour, and we actually took about an hour and a half. It was really good conversation. People were very engaged. We did an exercise that we do with all of our substitute teachers, but of course we extended upon it. And you know, when you have the group of TAs, much like our teaching staff, you have a very wide, and actually more, I would say, than our teaching staff, a very wide range of experiences in that classroom, and people who have been here for almost 30 years, and people who have literally, the woman that you appointed last meeting, so have been there literally a week, but also people who have been very often in all three buildings in the course of their career. So they really are able to talk about experiences of all the different ages of our students and the needs of our students, and also it's also a group of people who are mainly residents of our district, and so that confidentiality question is very important for them. And not only did they get some sort of talking points from me, but also from their colleagues about, okay, when you're standing in, you know, online at Hannaford and someone comes up and starts to ask you, you know, how's my student doing in class, that you can't you can't have those conversations and then talking about why you can't. So it was really good. And then it did, towards the end, we did start talking about school safety, because of course it was very much on our minds, and it was a very, I would say, positive sharing session from them, and some questions that they asked me that we were able to kind of talk through and look at, and you know, maybe even a little bit of grieving is happening too. It certainly has been something that has impacted all of us in very different ways over the last 5-6 days. So a good conversation, not exactly uplifting conversation to end the day, but I hope that they feel like they were able to share their concerns and that we're listening. And on the subject of safety, we are having our next district-wide safety committee meeting next Wednesday. I sent out an email to all staff, just reminding them of a couple of the safety procedures and practices that we have in place that we want people to be sure that they're following. One of those is that we keep the doors in locked position in the classrooms at all times. So it doesn't mean you can't have your door open while you're speaking, but you just keep it locked so that if you need to close it quickly, it's locked. And then also on the conversation that we had earlier about keeping making sure perimeter doors are closed. And I have to say, I don't see them propped like I used to. I mean, I'd say 5-6 years ago, when we were really first getting used to the idea that we were truly in a lockout. You know, people were doing that a lot. I really don't see that like I used to, and it certainly helps to have our 3 security people in each building, because they are, as I think, Joel, as you mentioned, or maybe, yeah, I don't know what it was, that they do rotate around the building several times a day to double check. But I think also our staff is on the lookout for that, and even our students as well. So, you know, I'm sure Tom will say this as well, but I certainly want everyone to know that we take our students' safety, that's our first priority at all times, and I hope that we never have to have the conversation that people in Florida are having right now with their kids. But please, parents, do have the conversation with your children about what to do, when and if, and help them be prepared. That's all. Actually, I have one more thing, I'm sorry. I had the activity reports for you from our extracurriculars that we had done in November. I have them actually at the beginning of this month, and I forgot to send them to Lisa, so those will be on the next, will be with you next month.
Question for Sarah?
So I just wanted to again thank middle school and Tom Tricello for presenting tonight. You know, that's something we started, the academic reports once a month. I think that's very important for the board and the public to see, you know, just all the great things that we're doing on a daily basis. In this presentation, Tom actually mentioned, when we talk about school safety, it's just such a multifaceted thing. There's so many aspects and so many different things you can do. And we are moving in the right direction, and we have I agree, we have to increase the pace of that. But in all the studies that I've seen and read about, the number one thing, if you had to rank them, the most important thing for school safety is relationships. You have to have the relationships with the students and the community, the faculty and the staff. And you need the right people in the places to have those relationships. And we have that with Ray Wilk, Willard Sutton, and Wade Sargent. So it's on our website today. I'll send an email out to the whole staff. So they were given the Highland Husky Award today, each of them, for just what they do every day, because they know the kids. They know who belongs and who doesn't belong. That goes a very long way for school safety. I actually had spoken with the, related to safety. I want to hear from the kids, so from the students. So I met with the student council advisor. I know they're not meeting until the end of this week, but I've invited the student council to be the first group to start the lunch with soup. So not the soup you eat, this soup. And that will be maybe every other week. So I'm starting with the high school student council. And I want to hear from the students, so I'll bring in pizzas and whatever they want to eat, well, that's what we'll get. But I want to hear from the students, what are we doing that's working, what are we doing that's not working, and we aren't doing at all, we should be. So I want to hear from the students' perspective. So the student council will be the first group I'll be meeting with. They'll be hopefully setting that up, talking about it later this week, so that we can maybe start it next week. Lunch with soup. I can report that back to you. I know it's been mentioned a lot, but again, this is just the continuing with keeping the conversation going about healthy choices, drug awareness, safety. So Trooper Craig Vedder was back again, as you've heard. He met with the whole middle school on Wednesday. He met with the whole high school Thursday. I mean, he touched upon, the title was Social Media and Safe Networking, but really he talked about healthy choices, bullying, drug awareness. It really was very engaging, very eye-opening. A lot of things that I didn't realize happen, and very easily people with bad intentions can do a lot online. I have met, following up from the Not My Child presentation that we did have, so I'm working with Frank Alfonso. So we're going to be planning a second night of that, and that will be for the spring athletes. So any athletes who, if you saw it in the winter, you don't have to see it again, but certainly this is for the spring athletes who are not winter athletes to view the Not My Child movement. Jody mentioned the strategic plan scorecard. So I had given this is a whole presentation in itself. But when we talk about a 95% graduation rate, I think we say it's 96 on here, so the paper might have been wrong. That's every staff member. So I mean, when we applaud the high school, really, you're applauding from the kindergarten teacher to the senior teacher, you're applauding the custodian, you're applauding the secretaries, you're applauding everybody, because it's a total input and environment and culture that you get a 95% graduation rate. So really I applaud everyone. So this is really, again, I'm not prepared to go into a long conversation about this tonight, but I want to give this to you now so that at a future board meeting, so you can kind of give time to absorb it, because it's a lot of information. And we'll do a full presentation on all of our buildings. So again, this is called the Strategic Plan Scorecard. These are all of our results from 2011 to present in different proficiencies, different categories. You made some suggestions about the high school category, so we added to that so that we can see what direction are we going in, and what we can see some of the areas that we wanna make improvements and strides, but again, at the end of the day, we have a 95% graduation rate. So that's great news, but we wanna keep that going. So it's important to know, where you were, where you're going. We will, once this is complete and we do a presentation to the board, we'll make this, we'll have this on the website, we'll have this available in each of the offices for the public to view when they're here, because we want people to see where we are, what we've done, and where we're going. We will be sitting down with the, a little bit, this year is going very quickly. We're really kind of having the discussions this year about, hey, what are our goals for next year? You need to have goals, and they need to be realistic and attainable. So this is not going to be just information for information's sake. These will be conversations that will drive new programs and new directions. Okay. Finally, so we talked about a capital project at the last board meeting. So looking at an $8 million project, that's the because of that dropping debt. So just an update on that. We met then after that board meeting with the Support Services Committee, and we invited some members of the community who were involved in this last project to review over, we provided them with the list that, the administration and Mr. Miller, kind of we had brainstormed, and hey, these are the things that we think we would like to do. And really just had some great conversation with them. They really, we had their full support that yes, this is what you have to do in a school district. It is our responsibility to, maintain the facilities, to make the upgrades, to maintain safety. So we really talked about different strategies that we will do, in pitching this to the public. I then, because we are on a fast track here, because we do want to vote on this in May. So Louise Lynch, Pete Miller, and myself met, and between the three of us, we honed down that list to really the categories of safety and upgrades. Specifically, a lot of upgrades on HVAC, on heat, and there's a lot of issues at the elementary school with heating, but a lot of safety upgrades, lighting, just things that need to be done. Ms. Lynch and I are meeting next week with the architects to have some preliminary discussions so that, I'm not sure which meeting, it will be the March 6th meeting or the next one, so that we can have a formal proposal to the board.
While we're under that, any discussion at this point in time?
You'll give us a list of what's going in?
Yes, so we'll give a list of, that these are the items that we're, right, so we'll be voting on a number, but in that number will be, these are the proposed items, yes.
You were handed a list of the last meeting.
Yeah, but
That's
you
a
said you
preliminary.
pared
Yeah,
it down.
we pared it down
We can vote on
to a
that.
realistic.
To use that for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what, the difference between what we retired and what we're looking at, 420, 430.
It's about $423,000, yes, and that's what makes it about an $8 million project, because that'll, and they'll keep the tax levy the same, even. So this would be, a project, so there'll be no additional tax, we're already paying taxes, but it'd be no tax impact to the taxpayers.
But as Tom had mentioned, we're on a fast track, we have to have it in order to get it on the May ballot for our budget. To include this proposition along with the bus proposition, we need to have it approved by March 20th. So if you feel that there's an additional meeting that's required to gather all the information to make your decision, we can have that. April 6th to 13th of March.
Right,
We're scheduled for the 6th. We can have the 13th, and then the 20th is our other scheduled meeting. If you have any questions, you'll let us know.
That's it.
All right, any other questions for the superintendent? Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Under Board of Education, new business, Ulster BOCES annual meeting, countywide vote, Monday, April 9th. And the Ulster BOCES annual meeting is Wednesday, April 18th.
We just started the meeting.
So,
Before you adjust our meeting to hit the budget on, because usually we adjust it then.
okay.
And so that we're meeting the night that we have to vote on the budget.
Actually, looking at that.
Is that what you were saying?
Yeah,
I think that vote is for the
Right.
trustees, right?
Correct.
Oh,
We
it's not the
usually,
same?
but we switched it for the past few years to meet on a Wednesday, because you have to at least meet in a quorum.
Right.
But this year with the school calendar, we decided to still meet on Tuesday, keep it on a Tuesday, and then meet again on Wednesday. But that's your
We get a quorum
decision.
together.
Right.
We've done that in the
Okay.
past.
Oh,
Right.
I didn't remember
Yeah.
what we did, okay.
In the lobby of the middle school. I remember you doing that.
If you didn't have any chairs for us, we had in the lobby.
What are you all showing up here for?
Okay, both these board seat vacancies, if you look, I believe is Highlands up.
I would like to, if you'll have me. We will have you.
There's no discussion. Highland at the Aura, and
Might
there's
be
two at
somebody out in the
large.
audience there in cyber world. No.
Well, we appreciate the time that you put in.
Absolutely.
It's important effort for us to have a
Gives me a
voice.
bigger,
So by our March,
confusing, but it's.
by our March 6th, I believe we can have a nomination for that.
Okay.
All right. Ulster County School Board Association meeting known as March 8th, 2018.
Possibly that March 8th.
That's all FYI. And our Board of Education policy first reading, the first policy is confidentiality of computerized information. I know that's 4 pages. I'm not sure if you had an opportunity to go through it. It's already been reviewed by legal. So if you have any
It has.
questions,
Officially, it is.
Okay.
if you have any questions or concerns, now is the time, and we can bring it to a second reading for approval. We don't have to vote on it tonight. If you're set tonight, we can vote on it. And then the other one is information security breach notification. That's a single page, that's a lot shorter to read and understand.
And mainly, it's about if we had a data breach in whatever, that's how we would notify people, what we need to do to notify people. And the one thing that's not attached there is we did have to create a draft letter that would go out. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. And, it's one of those that there's big spaces in it because depending on the situation and the information, that would change.
So do you want to hold this for March 6th vote, so you have time?
Yeah, I think the one is really lengthy and,
Sure.
We'll consider this the first reading.
All right, so March 6th will be our second reading, and hopefully we'll have an approval at that point. In the meantime, if you have any concerns or questions, just email them to Sarah or Tom, and
Yes.
get Margo to look at them. Okay, collective negotiations agreement between Highland Central School District and our Highland Administrators Association. Be resolved, the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approve the proposed collective negotiations contract agreement between Highland Central School District and Highland Administrators Association as presented to the board at this meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
Move it.
Motion by Sue, second by Tom. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried.
I want to thank you all for working with us. It's very fair contract. We really pay attention to all the different factors that have to be weighed. Thank you.
Okay. Creation of new position, senior account clerk.
I think we need to hold off on that.
So you want to table that?
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to table the creation of the new position, senior account clerk? Motion by Heather, second by Ed. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Under old business, Ulster County School Board Association Distinguished Friends of Education Award due February 23rd. We've had some discussion. I believe we're all moving forward with a recommendation, and we'll present that to the Ulster County School Boards Association. Everybody fine with that?
Sounds great.
Highland Educational Foundation's having their annual snowball event this coming Saturday, February 24th at Novello's in New Paltz. I know some board members are going, and the general public is interested in going. It's a benefit to the educational process in our school district. I know in the past the foundation has given out a lot to all our school campuses, elementary, middle, and high school, and they're doing even more this year.
So this year they'll be awarding over $4,000 in grants to teachers who have applied district-wide. And they'll be announcing those winners Saturday night at the snowball.
Okay, so if you can, we appreciate that.
Just real quick, I think I had 5 members, besides Heather, who are planning to attend, am I correct? Okay, thank you.
Okay, under miscellaneous, the Mid-Hudson School Study Council Spring Awards, FYI. And is there anything?
Yeah, I had one item, how does, like, let's say we have a club that's informal, ski club or something else. How does an extracurricular club come to fruition? Do we have identified process for that? Is there a form that principals fill out or a staff member? Like, how do we get a new club?
It's a policy, and they have to follow the policy.
So the extracurricular board policy says all that?
It's listed all, it has to have positions stated, it has to have a purpose, it has to have an advisor, all that stuff's laid out.
And who fills that out though? The principal?
No, they come, and the way I've done in the past is the students had come to me with an idea for a club.
Okay.
I'll refer them to an example of what this looks like. They find somebody they want to, advisor they want to work with, they put that together, they bring it back, present it, I bring it to the superintendent, he looks at it, then it goes to the Board of Ed for approval.
So for example, like this presentation that we received today about this after-school program for the teacher, is that a formal program, or these people are being asked to donate their time?
Which
No, this is part of our lap
It's
plan.
part of our lap plan, so.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
This isn't a club, this is
not a club.
intervention as a result of our.
But it's after
local-
school.
It is after school,
Yes.
and part of the plan that we submit to the state
Right.
has funding for
So
the
they get
teachers.
paid, the teachers get paid.
It's not a club,
Thank you. Okay.
it's an academic program.
Hey, Dan, wasn't there also, part of the premise for that club would be, like, for the first year or two, where it just kind of happens and you see how it's run? Would maybe not a stipend attached to it? I think that's more of a piece I'm not really that familiar with. People come to me with clubs and I put forward that plan. I think there's a piece with the union contract about that, but I'm not sure what that
That
is.
gets
and I'm not
handled
really
up
gonna
at
get
Central,
it.
it sounds.
Yeah, that's more of a.
Clubs that have just been some level of a club without a stipend attached.
Correct.
And when
Correct.
We do have
when I saw the
volunteers.
following and we saw the interest in everything, then we.
The problem with volunteers is when you lose that volunteer, you lose the program.
Right.
So we're looking at a way that staff and students actually know how to propose a new opportunity and what that process is. So I will take a look at the board policy. Thank you.
Now, while we have our 6 building administrators here, a while back at a meeting, we discussed filling, not necessarily, really filling more seats in the audience for board meetings. And one of the ways we thought to do it was to follow the model, kind of the district to the south of the small borough, where they have a student of the month, recommended by administration in each building, and, presentation to that student, and a lot of times these aren't the students that aren't necessarily the highest tier, the stars of this, stars of that, just somebody that does something unique for a period of time, that is positive reinforcement through a recommendation, for student of the month. Would you be willing participants in that? And,
I think Joel started his recommendation for his first student.
Sounds like Absolutely, that's a great idea. I like the
And again, it's just one more way of catching, some of those students that might need that lift.
I know we talked about that a little earlier on in my career, I think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Thank you ahead of time.
Thank you.
Anything else for the good welfare of the district? I'll open the meeting back up to public comment. Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn. I don't believe we have any executive session. Motion by Heather, second by Ed. Discussion, all in favor?
Thank you.